Ever feel like every paycheck you're struggling to decide between paying off debt or investing in your retirement? Well, if so, you're not alone. So American households, they hold over $17 trillion in debt, and every one of those households, think about this, every single paycheck. So in this video, my AI assistant Tiara and I are going to guide you through understanding which choice might be right for you based on your unique financial situation. And we'll also explore why this decision is so crucial for your long-term financial health. Plus, in a few minutes here, I'm going to reveal the single most powerful strategy that could potentially save you thousands in unnecessary interest and make a massive impact on your financial situation for many years to come. But before we get into that, Tiara, how should we begin this one?
Let's start with the factors you need to consider.
Agreed. Okay, so let's just dive right into the meat of this, right? Let's not, mess around.
Meat?
Never mind, Tiara, it's slang. Let me get going here. When you're trying to decide between paying off debt or saving for retirement, you don't want to just, randomly choose the winner. Now, we'll discuss when to make the proper financial decisions here in a minute, but first, let's identify some of the most common scenarios that people usually deal with. So first up, we've got interest rates on your debt. So this is a big deal. So the type of debt that you're dealing with matters quite a bit, as a high interest credit card debt is a very different beast from a low interest mortgage. Next, you need to consider your employer's retirement match. So if your company is offering to match your 401k contributions, that's essentially free money, and it's foolish to not take advantage of that. Your age and time until retirement also play a crucial role. So the power of compound interest means that the earlier you start something, the more time your money has to grow. But if retirement is just around the corner, your strategy might need to shift to where you focus more on saving what you already have. And don't forget to factor in your current retirement savings as well. So are you on track or are you playing catch up? Neither situation is necessarily the wrong one. You just need to make sure that you understand what you're dealing with, honestly, and just be honest with yourself about it. Lastly, consider your job security and your income stability. So a steady paycheck might make you more comfortable allocating funds to retirement, while if you have a less stable income, it might prioritize building an emergency fund or paying down debt. Every situation is different, so you have to look at your own and kind of figure this all out. And while there are nearly infinite situations that someone has to deal with when they're deciding where to put their money, these are some of the most, I guess you could say most common ones where you should always think extra hard before making a decision, as they'll usually deliver 80% of the results for most of the decisions. So Tiara, what's next from here?
Let's focus on when paying off debt makes the most sense.
Absolutely. Okay, because frankly, I think all of us have more debt than we'd like. And as important as retirement is, if that debt carries into your retirement, you're going to struggle. So obviously, I can't cover every single scenario here, but here are some of the main ones, right? First up, we've got high interest debt, like situations with credit card balances where they have sky high interest rates. Paying these off should be at the top of your list in almost every instance, as they likely have the highest interest rate of anything that you have. Now, you may think that credit cards aren't all that bad, but let's say that you have a $5,000 balance on a card with a 20% APR. If you put nothing else on the card and paid just the minimum each month, you'd end up shelling out over $6,000 over the life of the debt. And that's at 20%, and many credit cards go far beyond that interest rate. Next, consider prioritizing debt when it's, causing significant stress. So financial stress, it can take a toll on your mental health and your overall well-being, and frankly, it's just not worth it. So if your debt is keeping you up at night, it might be worth, just kind of considering or focusing on paying it off just for the peace of mind alone.
Or you could just stay awake and contemplate the error of your financial ways. Sleep is overrated anyway.
Yeah, overrated for computers, Tiara, yes. But it is kind of a necessity for human beings.
Pathetic.
Not today, Tiara. Like I was saying, debt that causes significant stress, needless to say, student loan debt will probably fall into this category for most of you. But if it is a low interest rate on your loan, you really don't have to stress too much about it, and instead focus more on whatever the next highest interest rate item is. Next, short-term debt with a manageable payoff timeline is another scenario where prioritizing debt makes sense. So if you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, it might be worth pushing through to become debt-free. So for example, if you have a $2,000 balance left on a personal loan and you can pay it off in, let's say, 6 months by redirecting some funds over to it, it could be worth pausing your retirement contributions temporarily. Now, aside from getting rid of the loan payment that you'd have, right, which will save some money each month, one of the biggest reasons for this is to make some progress, which will help you become more confident in your debt paying abilities. And remember, everyone's financial situation is very unique. So these scenarios that I'm giving you, they're guidelines, but they obviously aren't, hard and fast rules. But, moving on here. So Tiara, what's next from here?
In the next section, let's focus on when to prioritize retirement over paying debts.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. And while I don't know that there are a ton of times that you'd actually want to do this because debt really is so damaging to your finances, there are some scenarios where it actually does make more sense to do this. So first up are employer matching contributions. So if your company offers to match your 401k contributions, this should be your top priority. And here's why. So let's say your employer offers a 50% match on the first 6% of your salary. So if you're making $50,000 a year and contribute 6%, which is $3,000, your employer will kick in an extra $1,500. And that is a 50% return on your investment. And frankly, you're never going to find that guaranteed anywhere else. Plus, this doesn't include the eventual gains that you'll gain from investments either. So it's really even more powerful than that. Next, consider prioritizing retirement when you're dealing with long-term, low-interest debt like a mortgage. So if your mortgage rate is, at 3 to 4%, and the historical average stock market return is around 7%, you might actually come out ahead by investing rather than paying extra on your mortgage. Now, granted, at today's interest rates, you may have to hold until you can eventually refinance. But the point here in all this is to always focus on interest rates to see what the right move is. Also, something worth noting here, if you've ever wondered, and I think we all have, if you've ever wondered if you should pay off your mortgage early, I actually created another video all about this that I'll link to later in this video as well. And lastly, if you're far behind on retirement savings and still have 15 to 20 years before retirement, it might be time to kick your contributions into high gear. So the power of compound interest means that every year you delay could really cost you big time in the long run. So for instance, if you start saving $5,000 a year at age 25, you could have over $1 million by age 65, assuming a 7% annual return. But if you wait until 35 to start, you'd end up with less than half that amount. And compound interest really is your best friend for retirement. So get your retirement accounts full as early as you can to take advantage of that. And keep in mind that even if retirement seems really, really far away, like it did for me when I was younger, speaking from experience myself, getting enough money into your accounts to not stress about retirement in the future is one of the most freeing feelings that you can have. I personally have enough now to where it compounds, and if it goes through the regular rules, I know I'm good for retirement, so I really just have to worry more about month to month. And I really can't tell you how freeing that is. Okay, so Tiara, where do we go to from here?
What was the single most powerful strategy you mentioned in the beginning?
Yes, of course. So in the intro, I mentioned a powerful strategy that could potentially save thousands and make a massive impact on your finances. That strategy would be utilizing debt consolidation and refinancing when it's appropriate.
Because clearly, adding more debt to solve debt is a stroke of genius only a human could appreciate.
Okay, Tiara, no. This actually does make sense. So hear me out here. And no, I'm not talking about using a debt consolidation service because oftentimes those companies actually rip you off anyway. Though there are, for the record, there are some good ones. But what we're talking about here is combining multiple debts into a single larger piece of debt, usually with more favorable payoff terms, like it'd have a lower interest rate or a lower monthly payment or both. So many times this means just transferring all credit card balances to one new card with a 0% APR for a year or two, depending on what you actually qualify for. But it could mean consolidating other debts as well. Now, in terms of refinancing, this refers to the process of revising and replacing the terms of an existing credit agreement. So this is typically done on a loan or a mortgage, usually. When applied to debts, refinancing is especially effective for obtaining a lower interest rate, which can significantly reduce the amount of interest paid over the life of the loan. Now, for those of you right now who are thinking about this, It does make sense to wait a bit as the interest rates are just too high right now. But when they inevitably dip in the future, which they will, it's something to definitely think about. And by consolidating and refinancing to a lower interest rate, you can actually reduce the amount of interest accrued each month. And this not only decreases the total cost over the life of the loan, but also can potentially free up cash each month. Plus, it simplifies things because instead of making numerous payments to, all these different companies, you only make one payment instead. Now, earlier in the video, I mentioned that I did have a video all about whether or not you should pay off your mortgage early. And you can watch that video right over here, or you could check out this other video over here instead. But before you go, please make sure that you subscribe to the channel to unlock financial success one AI chat at a time. Thanks so much for watching.